Alright guys, this video is going to cover what we call oblique triangles, which means that there's not a right angle in the triangle. So normally you can use SOHCAHTOA, you can use the regular area formula to find the area of a triangle. However, because these don't have right angles in them, we have a couple of new formulas that we can use in order to find missing sides or angles. So the first one is the law of sines. The law of sines just basically is a ratio. So you're going to have sine A over A, sine B over B, sine C over C, and all those are sides and angles. So we're going to name angles with big letters. Okay, we're going to name them with capitals. So like this could be angle A, this would be angle B, this could be angle C. And then the side that's opposite that angle is going to be the lowercase letter that corresponds. So this side would be A, little a, this side would be little b, and this side would be little c. That looks exactly like the capital. Okay, so when I'm talking about the sides that are opposite, that just means like if they don't tell you that, you're going to assume and infer that the letters are across from one another. You can also flip this ratio over if you wanted to put the sides on the top. It really doesn't matter. Just memorize it one way and it'll make it easier. So these are used, this particular formula is the easiest to use when you have an angle side triangle or you have a side angle triangle. So basically you have two of one thing and one of another thing. And so when I say that, I just mean if you were given, for instance, this angle, and then this side, that would be how you would use this. Or if you have two sides that are next to each other in the angle, not the one that's in between, just the one that's next to it. And yes, I know what else that spells. I'm just, posterity's sake. So for one of these problems, they're going to give you a triangle and tell you some information about it, and then they want to know the length of the segment. So the first thing you should always do is draw your picture, because maybe it does turn out to be an easy one, maybe it does turn out to be a right triangle and you don't have to worry about anything. But when I draw this picture, again, it doesn't matter what it looks like, and it doesn't matter where you put A, B, and C. I'm just going to place them. I usually just go around in a circle, and that's how I do it. And I'm going to label what I know. So I know that angle A is 95 degrees. I know that side BC is 5. And I know that angle B is 20 degrees. Okay. I know that all the angles in a triangle add up to 180. So I can see that that last angle is not going to be a 90-degree angle, which is unfortunate. But now I can use the law of sines to find this. So what I want to find is the segment AC right there. So when I set up this ratio, again, you have to keep your opposite sides and angles together. So I know a lot of stuff about angle A and side A. So I'm going to start with that one. So I'm going to have sine of 95 over that side length, 5. And then I'm going to set up the thing I don't know. So then I don't have side B. I want side B. So I'm going to have side 20 over B. You may need to find the last angle, perhaps. If you need to, just do 180 minus the two angles that you're given, just in case maybe they give you this side instead, and so you needed to find this angle. Okay, but now this is just a case of cross multiplying and solving. Please make sure on these types of problems that you're in degrees. If you notice, they gave me these things in degrees, so I should be in degrees. Okay. This is the hardest ACDEC math test as far as trying to figure out what mode you need to be in, because it's going to switch back and forth depending on what problem you're doing. Okay, so when I do this, I'm going to cross multiply. So I'll have B sine of, well, maybe B sine of 95, that's a 9, equals 5 times the sine of 20. And then I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 95. Okay, the more things you can type into your calculator at once is going to make your life a lot easier. So again, try to get as much as it ready as you can. Don't just keep doing step by step by step. So I'm going to have 5 times the sine of 20 over sine of 95. And then I'm going to go get that decimal approximation, which is 1.72. Well, I'm just struggling with this like writing thing today. Okay. So that's the law of sines. Now the law of cosines is slightly different. Law of cosines is what we call the Pythagorean theorem on crack. If you get rid of this piece, it is the Pythagorean theorem. So technically you've been doing this in your Pythagorean theorem this whole time. However, it just, the cosine of C ended up canceling out because that was your hypotenuse. Okay, so when I look at this, you're going to use this particular this particular formula when you have a side, or you have a side angle side. So if I'm given all three sides, this one is super useful. Okay, also if I'm given a side and the angle in between those two sides, oh, they're not the same. Okay, The hardest part about this formula is knowing that the side that's by itself is the one that you have the angle for. Or if you're finding that angle, that's the one that goes by itself. So again, this is just the formula. Memorize it, put it on a flashcard. But right here, this is what it looks like. So let's do an example problem. It says determine the angles of a triangle if its sides are this. So we have one side is 8, one side is 6, and one side is 7. Okay, why didn't they put those in order? I don't know. That bothers me too. Okay, the biggest issue on this type of problem is you're going to probably have to do this twice. Okay, so this is another case of put as much into the calculator as you can at once. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with, I'm going to find this angle right here. Okay, and then they didn't even label them. So I'm just going to find this first angle. When I plug this in, again, this side is the one that's across from the angle I want to find, so that one's going to go by itself. So I'm going to have 8 squared equals 6 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 6 times 7. It's the two sides that are by themselves over here times the cosine of C. Or whatever. I'm going to call it C apparently. This is my angle C. Now the hardest part on this is I need to go through and actually solve this for the cosine C piece. This is like your X. This is your variable. You can't just start dividing already. Okay, that cosine C is stuck there. So the first thing that you need to do is subtract these two pieces. So you're going to have to subtract the 6 squared and the 7 squared from both sides. So I'm going to have 8 squared minus 6 squared minus 7 squared. Notice I haven't even figured out what those squares are just in case I'm going to make a mistake. And then it equals to negative 2 times 6 times 7. Again, I haven't multiplied anything out yet. Since these two things are connected by multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by whatever this number ends up being to get rid of this. So when I type this into my calculator, sorry. So when I type this into my calculator, I'm going to type this entire piece in. Okay. I don't want to make any mistakes as far as like whatever, making a simple error like that. I'm doing the hard part, right? So I want to make sure I get this part right. So 8 squared minus 6 squared. Notice I'm putting this as a big fraction. And then this is a negative 2. If you don't make it negative, it's going to be incorrect. The numerator might turn negative itself. That's okay. Oh, what a nice number. Okay, the last thing I need to do is this is 1/4 equals, cosine C. So in order for me to get rid of that cosine, I'm going to take the inverse cosine of the other side, which is just second cosine. So I'm going to do second cosine. Again, I'm still in degrees, and I'm going to just go paste that number in just to make my life easier. I know it's just 1/4, but sometimes it's a gross number. And I find that one of my angles is 75.5. Okay, this is when you do like a go back and check and see what's going on. 75.5 is not an answer A. 75.5 is not an answer B. 75.5 is not an answer C. It is in D. And it's not an E. Hey, surprise, I got really lucky and I picked the one that only appeared in one answer. That's great. You could do this again in order to find another side. So you would just put, for instance, 6 by itself and then solve the same process. Do remember that if you need to find, maybe you found 2 of them and you need to find the last one, you can just do the angle A plus angle B plus angle C has got to equal to 180. So use that tip to your advantage. The last thing they might ask you to do is find area of these weird types of triangles. So these are the 2 formulas that you can use to find area. They have names, I don't even care. This right here, this first one, 1/2 AB sine C, you're going to use that if you have a side angle side triangle. So again, if you have 2 sides and the angle between them, so kind of like what you used for the law of cosines, you can use this formula. This other formula you're going to use if you have a side-side-side triangle. So if you have all 3 sides, okay, the S in this formula, the S you see 3 times, that's going to be what we call the semiperimeter. And the semiperimeter is found by adding up all the sides and dividing by 2. It's half of the perimeter. So you're going to find side A plus side B plus side C and then just divide it by 2. And then it's just a plug it into your calculator type of situation. Okay. So that's the 2 different formulas you can see here. And I think we saw one of these at the super quiz at Irving. So this right here, suppose that a triangle ABC has these 2 side lengths and the measure of angle B is 25. What is the area of the triangle to the nearest unit? So again, draw your picture real quick. I know you're like, I only have a minute to solve this problem, but drawing a triangle takes not that long. Okay, so side AB, especially if you're not talking during it. 55 is AB, BC is 4, and the measure of angle B is 25 degrees. So this right here is a side angle side triangle, so I can use that first formula. So I'm just going to find the area is 1/2 times 55 times 4 times, be careful here, it's not the cosine, it's the sine of 25 degrees, and I can just type all of that into the calculator. In fact, I would recommend maybe not even writing it on your paper, and instead just typing it into your calculator to start with. I am going to use a 0.5 just for time's sake. Okay, 55 times 4 times the sine 25, again, making sure I'm in degrees. And so I get that that is the area, and 46, answer E. Okay, so that is the law of sines and cosines, and some of those area formulas. So again, these are the four formulas that you have to know by heart. And again, they're not super difficult. I think memorizing this part is the most tricky part because you forget about the 2. And a lot of times they like this formula instead of the one with the S in it, but just have both of those things in your back pocket because it could get you a question or two on your test.